this point, I'd like to bring up Nate Tingley to announce today's program.
Good afternoon, everybody. I get the honor of presenting a couple of speakers. One is my son, Benjamin Tingley. He's going to talk a little bit about a project he just completed with the assistance of Heartlands Conservancy. So Heartlands Conservancy is a great partner with the city of Edwardsville, and Scott's going to speak a little bit about a conservation management plan they've been working on in partnership with the city for a couple of park spaces, Richards and Darta Woods. And so Ben, I'm going to have you come on up. He's a Boy Scout, as you can see, and he's going to talk a little bit about his project and how Heartlands helped him accomplish that project.
Hello, I'm Benjamin Tingley. I was just able to complete my Eagle Scout project in association with the city of Edwardsville and Heartlands Conservancy. My Eagle Scout project was to plant some dogwood trees, 50 to be exact, at the Richards Woods Park. We did this on a Saturday morning, and we got a crew on out there to plant up these yay tall trees that the Heartlands Conservancy so graciously gifted us for absolutely zero cost. So thank you to Mr. Scott. So if you would like to come up here.
Sure.
Well, thank you for that introduction, Nate and Ben. And to be clear, I will, out of total transparency, those trees are through a program. We have a grant through the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. And we did pass through those funds, but that was part of our largest tree giveaway, as long as we've been working with IDNR on our urban forestry program. Where this year we were able to help 16 communities in the Metro East with over 800 trees. And Benjamin's was, and I'll tell you what, I know you all know a little bit about Heartlands Conservancy because Mary, our president and CEO, not only lives here in Edwardsville, but I know she's presented to you a couple of times. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about what I love about Heartland, since you all have heard Mary's speech before. So as you know, we're what most people would consider somewhat of an environmental nonprofit organization. So most nonprofit organizations have a bit of a focus on land and water, and, trees and plants and everything, which I love. And that's one of the things that made me want to work for Heartlands Conservancy. But what I really like about it as an urban planner by trade is that Heartlands puts communities and the people also front and center. So I really love that about Heartlands, and I'm glad that I'm able to do my work for Heartlands and help further the mission to advance and protect not only our distinctive, our natural and significant, nationally significant natural resources, but also our communities as well, and the cultural resources that go along with it. So in order to carry out our mission, we have three program areas. Land, which obviously conserves land. Water, which works on our water resources and our floodplain resources. We do a lot of watershed planning and those sorts of things. And as I mentioned, communities, which I have the honor of being the program manager for, which is our communities program. And I am the community planning and policy manager. But I'm going to talk to you a minute or two about a project that we worked with the city of Edwardsville, specifically with Nate and Parks and Recreation Department. And all three of our program areas actually had some coordination on this project, and that is the Darta Woods and Richards Woods Conservation Master Plans. So I'll go ahead through these for you and give you a little bit of background really quick, and then get into some few details and answer some questions if we have some time left over. So these are the two locations. I think most people are probably familiar with it. Darda Woods is on the northwest quadrant of town, and Richards Woods is on the northeast quadrant. Actually not too far from where we're sitting here. And we approached the project with three primary objectives coming into it. The first one is to kind of protect and maintain the long-term health and stability of the local ecosystems in both parks. Which a big part of that is getting some of the invasive species, particularly vegetation, under control. Anybody who's done any work at either of these sites before has probably noticed, there's some invasive species that creep up, particularly what I've seen a lot of in the last few years are the bush honeysuckle for one, and then of course the calorie pears have become a big nuisance problem. Not just the smell, but they're just spreading all over the place, so they've become a huge problem. So those are what just examples of some of the things that we've looked at through the objectives in terms of preparing the plan. The other thing was to present basically a unique identity for each park and come up with recommendations that would help establish that identity, almost like a branding sort of theme, if you would, to identify what role the park would fill in the community and in the park system. And then also make recommendations on the types of facilities and the programming and the events that would meet the community's needs and the community's desires for these properties. So we did this all. Obviously, we can't do this in a vacuum. We rely very heavily on community engagement and community input when we go through a project, any project for that matter. But when we're trying to help plan the community's park systems, we really must rely on community engagement to identify, well, what is it the community wants out of their park system? So not only did we do an online community survey, but we did dozens of stakeholder interviews with elected and appointed officials, community members, city staff. We did 2 neighborhood pop-up events, one at the Watershed Nature Center Earth Day celebration a couple of years ago. Actually, this has been an ongoing project. And then at the Land Goshen Community Market, we did a pop-up. And then we've also done a standalone open house, as well as a presentation to the EEC, the Edwardsville Environmental Commission, and did a workshop with them. So what all of this community engagement has led to is the development of plans. Technically 1 project and 1 document, but 2 separate plans. So I'll cover the Darda Woods project first, and we'll just keep this at a high level. So one of the interesting things about the Darda Woods projects, if we're all familiar with over off of New Pogue Road, is that it's adjacent to and abuts Bohm Woods, which Bohm Woods has one of the few stands of old growth hardwood forest remaining in the state of Illinois. So one of the purposes of the Darda Woods project is to provide kind of a buffer from further development encroaching close to the woods to help further protect the native old growth forest that's there at the Bohm Woods site. But also, obviously, this could play an excellent role in the community as well, beyond just that. And the vision, as you say, I won't read it. I've got it up on the board. You all can see it. But as you see, it's all about preserving mostly in a mostly natural state, the benefits and the resources that are there on the site, but really promoting and allowing the community and visitors into the community to visit it and enjoy and somewhat commune with nature at the site as well. As a result, the long-term framework, this is the overall plan for what we, the suggestions would do to meet the objectives for the project. And I'll point out that with all of this, some of this is already in place in the form of the trails that the Parks Department already keeps mowed. And some of it would be a little bit of expansion and some improvement into a little harder surface trails that might provide a little more utility for a wider swath of the community, if you will. In total, the opinion of probable costs on this for all the amenities is about 2.9 million, but I need to put a caveat on that. 1.4 million of that, so almost half, is actually the boardwalk. And that's one of those pieces that could be kind of a plug and play. We think it would be an excellent feature there, but that's one of those things that could be added to, you could get the core of the project done and then add that to as the opportunity arises. But, that's the entire full-term, long-term growth plan that we've lined out. So, and I will point out that this does include some observation areas for observing kind of overlook areas, as well as interpretive signage along the way through the park as well. Not just the features that I've got listed there. And in terms of programming, our recommendations are primarily passive recreation, not a whole lot of active uses of the site, such as leisure walking, hiking, native plant identification, wildlife viewing. Hopefully some of the interpretive program would have some invasive species awareness too, so that the community can get educated on invasive species and controlling them in their own backyards. And then also nature-based programming. And then in terms of the conservation priorities, obviously I mentioned before, but protect Bones Nature Preserves, which has the old growth hardwood forest there, invasive species management, reforestation, which I think, Nate and the Parks Department and volunteers in the community have done a fabulous job planning. Nate, do you off the top of your head know how many trees we're at so far out there?
Say more than 2,000.
So over 2,000 trees already at the site. So that's a site that's been, in the community and had a lot of community effort over the years as well. And recent years anyway. So it's been great to actually put a plan to it and, help chart the path on how to take it to the next level and moving forward throughout time. So this is all I want to present on Dirtle Woods, but let me move into Richards Woods next. Unless you have any questions specific about Dirtle Woods, otherwise I'll move on. We can cover questions when I get done. Hearing none, let's move on. So once again, this is a familiar theme. The vision for Richards Wood is not all that dissimilar from what we provided for Dirtle Woods. However, it's a little different site with not quite the same surroundings. So there's a creek running through it as well. So once again, the theme though is mostly a natural state here where people can enjoy nature and activities that occur in nature, rather than being a truly developed urban park. This would be more of a, in a somewhat urban setting still, but more of a wildlife, almost a preserve type of feeling to it. In the framework, it's primarily areas, we're talking about developing some trails, generally speaking, where the footpaths are currently. That would make the trails a little harder surface and resistant from erosion. We did recommend, and there have already been some implementation activities done on stabilizing the bank at Mooney Creek rather. So we're proposing that maybe a crossing would be beneficial there somewhere, since it would block access to folks who might be accessing the site from the west side. And of course, some opportunities for birding, for wildlife observation, along with some overlook opportunities as well. For this site, the total package would be roughly 1.5 million for total to provide the entire package to total build out. No one standout opportunity there, but Just to verify too, or just to let you know and ease your mind, we didn't just say, here, you guys do that, now figure out how. The plan itself has a whole implementation strategy, how to obtain it, what the priorities are that we work through, as well as the funding sources you could use to leverage external funds to help provide some of the amendment features. In terms of programming, once again, revolving around nature-based activities, self-guided interpretation, wildlife observation opportunities, as well, once again, as invasive species awareness. That's a theme that we're really been hammering hard on the last four or 5 years in particular. Then on the conservation priorities for Richardswood, much the same: invasive species management and remediation, maintaining a good, healthy tree canopy. This is including the new trees that Benjamin was able to plant around there for his Eagle project, and we were so happy to be able to help him and be able to lend additional trees to the Edwardsville community as we've done in the past. And look forward to working with you as you continue to move on toward implementation. If you'd like to take a look at the documents themselves, if you scan this QR code on the screen, you'll pull up the PDF to that document. You are welcome to do so. And then if there's nothing else, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Yes, ma'am.
About all these trees, I'm trying to know what you're doing to keep the deer from eating.
Mostly the little protect, what are the protectors called, Nate?
We do, anytime we do a tree planting, we'll do tree guards around the trees. And so sometimes you'll see them even if you drive by LeClaire Park or City Park, or even the parks in town, because we know the deer are everywhere. But that's typically what we'll do, and you can typically buy those for $4 to $5 a tree guard. There's all types of different varieties, but if you're planting a tree in your particular yard, I would recommend getting one as well.
Are they different sizes?
Yeah, they come in all kinds. You can get them as short as 2 feet. You can get them as tall as 4 feet. They can be mesh, where it's completely air going through it. You could have solid plastic on the first 24 inches, and then some have holes in the plastic up high. So if you want to spray a weed killer or something like that around the tree, solid plastic protects it. Some trees do better in certain types of tree guards, and some trees do better in others.
If you've gone to Dartle Woods, you've seen about 2,000 of those around the trees.
Wide variety.
Yes, sir. Yes. Obviously, there you need a place to park if we're gonna. Now, the one thought was what was the name of the arbor where arbor management was. The thought was that potentially that could be utilized and leveraged for park if the community could.
Yeah, the west side of Richards Woods, releasing a property that has a parking lot on it, and then using that parking lot adjacent to Richards Woods would allow us to use that current asset once it gets paved and meets city ordinance codes for the correct surface. Then we don't have to cut down more trees within the park itself and install even more infrastructure.
So would the city be purchasing that property?
Yes, we're leasing it currently.
And there is also a parking lot. There's a gravel parking lot at Dartle Woods now as well. And under the conservation easement, I think an unpaved parking lot is allowed to remain up to, I think it's 40 by 40, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. So that'll probably hold 20 cars or so, I guess, something like that. Yes, ma'am.
I've never heard of either one of these parks. I only lived for 35 years.
Well, welcome.
Business here for 37. So I don't know where they are and how do I get to them?
Sure. So we purchased Dartle Woods in 2018 with the assistance of Tarpons Conservancy to get us access to about $900,000 in grant funds for the acquisition of that park. And because it was old field use, it was old fields basically, both in the bottoms and up top. there wasn't a lot of infrastructure. We knew we had to do a lot of restoration before we made it completely accessible with paved parking lots and that kind of stuff. So our focus has been more so early on restoration, with the idea that once we have more of a park setting to allow people to come visit, then we can install the amenities such as a parking lot to make it accessible. Richards Woods was purchased with grant funds, partially grant funds, LWCF, it's Land, Water, and Conservation. And that was purchased in 2021 from Richards Brick. And so we continue to look at other opportunities. So that's Richards Woods is in between the bike trail that goes by Schwartz. And it's bounded by that 143, the Old Arbor Management property, and the Madison County Highway Department is right across the road from us. So it's that 35 acres.
Okay, so then where is the Darter Woods?
Darter Woods is right next to, in between the two off-campus housing units there
Okay.
on New Pogue Road there. And so there's a lane, it looks more like a private lane because it does go back to a private property that is kind of bounded by the park itself. And that's the access road for Darter Woods.
So you can go to Darter Woods as a resident?
Yep.
Hang out, chill out?
It's public property, you guys
Oh,
can,
okay.
we just don't necessarily have all the trail infrastructure installed yet as far as all the, to explore the entire property. You can still go through the mowed paths on the top acres that are on the bluff where we have the 2,000 trees planted, but down in the bottoms, which is a seasonal wetlands, we haven't extended the trails down there at this time.
Oh, okay.
So that's what that plan that you saw where it would talk about the continued investment into those properties to allow residents to explore more of it. Think of it like the watershed, but before you had the watershed fully built out the way it is now, you're seeing it in its infancy, these two properties.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Excellent way to put it, Nate.
No, it's clear. You said you were in the process. Well, how far along are you so far in terms of your plan? And then how long do you think it's gonna take?
The plan just finished. I think we have, the implementation goes up to, 10 years and beyond 10 years. So, but obviously, with the funding, the federal funding situation a little bit in flux, and that timeline might change. Well, that just depends on what happens, because a lot of the funding that's available out there are federally funded, programs. So depends partially on what that goes, but the other will be, at what rate, the city decides to move forward in attacking the priorities. The main thing they're working on, right, they've done a fantastic job with the beginnings, and we're already in the process of doing a lot of the conservation work before we even got it started with the plans. So they already got off to a running start before we started the actual planning work, before when we were just involved with helping